Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
All right, welcome back to the show. Make sure that if you aren't already, you're subscribed to the David Pakman Show membership program, davidpakman.com/membership. You get the full podcast commercial-free, 2 bonus shows a week, access to our full archive of shows back from 2005. It's quite the package, really quite the package, Lewis. I'm going to ask you, Lewis, how many anti-abortion bills do you think we have seen so far in 2011? Now, the total number in 2010 was 174. Okay, now bear in mind, we're closing in on mid-April. Mm-hmm. How many bills do you think we've seen, anti-abortion bills, so far in 2011?
I'd say close to 300.
Close to 300. Mm-hmm. So you would suggest that, well, you know what? For whatever reason, that's not even high enough. Actually, in March, we were already up to 351 anti-abortion bills. This is a shocking number. It's a dangerous number. People talk about paying for 9/11 calls or the police coming out if it's not a, quote, real emergency. I've never supported that. But the reality is there is just no downside for anti-choicers to throw out any and as many anti-abortion bills as they want, see what sticks, even if they conflict with Roe v. Wade, even if they're unconstitutional. There is just simply no downside to continuing to propose these anti-abortion bills. So the question is, yes, the majority aren't passing, but pieces of them will stick. Should anything be done, Lewis, to prevent this huge waste of time, which, by the way, is also a significant attack on women? What can you do?
What can be done? I mean, you're not going to change the way legislation happens in this country just because of this. I mean, what can you really do?
I'm not sure. I mean, think about it. When you think about you can't be tried twice for the same crime without significant new evidence or whatever. I mean, a lot of these bills, I get that they are different in terms of the letter of the law, but the spirit of many of these bills is really identical. And people complain about politicians all the time. One of the complaints should be repeatedly trying to pass bills that attack more than half of the population, women, have no chance of passing, and in many cases are unconstitutional or directly conflict with laws that already exist.
Well, Dave, good luck getting the people trying to pass all these bills themselves pass legislation to prevent them from trying to pass all these bills.
No, obviously it would never happen. And by the way, Barack Obama, supposedly a pro-choice, feminist president, what about some kind of statement from Barack Obama? Just a statement saying enough is enough with the attacks on women and constant new ways to make access to legal and safe abortions more difficult. Just a statement from the president. I don't know. Is that too much to ask?
No. We get plenty of statements from senators and House members, but never from the president regarding this.
There's a number, by the way, of states that have literally a shocking level of anti-women legislation. And I have a list here, and there's just a few different ones. And the situations in some of these states, really being here in New England, Lewis, I think we can get a little bit, we can lose some perspective sometimes on what the situation's like in some parts of the country. I mean, South Dakota has one clinic in the entire state that offers abortions. It's a Planned Parenthood in Sioux Falls. And no doctors who provide abortions at the clinic even live near it. So they have to fly in from where they work to provide the service. How is that good for women? Virginia, two-pronged strategy to attack women. Attack the ability to pay for abortion and the ability to find a safe and legal provider in the first place. Very, very difficult in Virginia. We talked about that legislation earlier in the year. Arizona is using race baiting to give angry, abusive men control over women's bodies. Listen to this. The law allows the would-be father to claim that an abortion was done for, quote, race or gender reasons, meaning that if a man is bitter because he was dumped by his wife, he can lash out at the doctor who performed the abortion. And again, what effect could this have? Making the clinic hesitant to perform it in the first place, especially for women who need it the most, women in abusive relationships.
Right.
It's incredible. And this goes on and on. Indiana is already, by the way, one of the worst states in the country on reproductive rights. The pro-choice legislators attempted to amend a ban on abortions after 22 weeks for rape or incest victims, knowing that victims, especially young ones, are often in denial for months about what happened to them. And Representative Eric Turner stood up and said many women would wait until they were 6 months pregnant, capriciously change their minds about having a baby, and falsely claim to be raped in order to get an abortion that's much more expensive than an early abortion. That makes sense? Representative Turner, it makes sense to you that women who are already ashamed and hesitant to even admit ever that they were raped would make that up? Women now are going to lie about having been raped when we have evidence that countless rapes already go unreported. What sense does that make? And the list goes on. Florida, Missouri, Kansas, Alabama, Idaho. Idaho is one of the many states that's using fake science claims that fetuses at 20 weeks can feel pain in order to ban abortions after 20 weeks. And what makes it stand out in Idaho is that the legislature seems to have a vendetta against Dr. Leroy Carhart. And state legislatures don't usually write their laws to target individuals for harassment, but I guess Dr. Carhart is the exception. He offered to help patients in need of late-term abortions after Dr. Tiller's assassination, of course, left a gap. Idaho is hardly the only state siding with anti-choicers against Dr. Carhart. They actually directed, the state of Nebraska was the first to ban post-20-week abortions, directed specifically at Carhart. He moved his practice to Maryland, and now Idaho is jumping on board. How long is this going to go on, Lewis? How long are we going to allow this to go on? I don't know. Again, when people get upset and they say, you know, I just don't feel my vote means anything, so I won't vote at all, these are the types of laws that are going to continue passing.
Come on. I don't know about that. This is happening at the state level, and states, red states, mostly.
The fact that it's happening at the state level means it should be even easier for people to get involved and actually affect change. That should be reason to get involved, not reason not to get involved.
Perhaps. Perhaps you're right, Dave.
I mean, if people continue to not vote because they feel that their vote doesn't mean anything.
Perhaps if this were happening in my state, I would be more involved.
Right. Maybe it would actually get Lewis to vote.
But there's nothing I can do about it when it's happening in Florida.
Well, the argument could be made that there is still something you could do. You just don't necessarily, you're not a constituent. But you were. You did go to school there. Maybe you could have your grandmother write to...
I could influence people in Florida.
Yeah, exactly. In any event, ladies and gentlemen, this is not the time to just give up and say, I don't really feel any connection to politicians and the way they're legislating, so I'm just going to not be involved in the political process at all. Because you know what? That's exactly what they want. The less you pay attention, the more that is going to happen with absolutely no influence or input from you.